Welcome, Mr. Louis Shrensky. You want to tell me your title here at Fort Myer Construction Company?
Well, I'm the Executive Vice President of Fort Myer Construction.
And Louis Shrensky, born here? Where did you come from?
Oh, yeah. I'm an immigrant from New York City. I came here to go to law school. I went to American University Law School. Back to the time, at the time I graduated law school, I was already commissioned an officer in the Army. This is 1968. There's something called the Vietnam War going on, and so I needed to go onto active duty. And for a year before I went on active duty, I worked for the Maritime Administration as a law clerk for the chief hearing examiner, or chief administrative law judge of the Maritime Administration. And then I went onto active duty with the Signal Corps. And ultimately, rather than going to Vietnam, I wound up being assigned to Seoul, Korea, and then came back to Washington, when I took a position with the General Accounting Office as a staff attorney, and worked there. And then I went finally into private practice, and worked for a short time in private practice as a trial attorney, and doing very general practice. And it was during that period of time that I was very blessed to meet Joe Rodriguez.
How did that happen?
Through a mutual friend. I was introduced to him. At that point in time, Joe was a superintendent for a paving contractor here in Washington, and he had an interest in starting his own business. His aspirations was to do home improvement work, patios and driveways, and was looking for assistance to set up a business. And when I met him, we had a conversation, and I quickly realized that he just needed a lot of help to set up a business. And I really didn't know how to charge him to set up a business. So I guess, again, I was very fortunate to have said the following to him, that I would not charge him, that rather than charging him, let's set up a business together, because I was kind of starving practicing law and thought that this might be an opportunity for me, having no idea what I was speaking about at the time. And together, we were just two young guys, took a shot, and we said, let's start a business.
Describing your first big contract.
And our first contract was before we even had a company. Someone had offered us an opportunity to build a small concrete wall, and Joe suggested that he would charge $1,200 to build that wall, and he would gather the people together to build the wall, and he had to pay COD to buy the concrete. So the man who asked us to build the wall said he would pay up front to do the job. And so he gave us $1,200, and by the time we paid for the concrete and paid the labor, when the job was done, we were left with $400. And the most amazing part of my story is that $400 is the entire capitalization of everything that Fort Myer Construction is today. We have never put another dollar in the business. I took the $400, by the way, and bought business cards and some stationery, and bought an ad in the Washington Evening Star at that time. And I took a small ad out in the classified section that said patios and driveways by European craftsmen, all work guaranteed. The gentleman that let us get started had a residential business, a rental business, and he let us use his company was called Fort Myer Heights Apartments. And so we called the company Fort Myer Concrete. And he would let us use his telephone to start the company. And so when the lady would answer the phone, she would answer the phone, Fort Myer Heights, and people would say, is this the concrete company? And she said, oh, yes, it is. And then she would take the messages for us. We had nobody there. Joe was still working for his contracting company, and I was still downtown working in my law practice.
So what you're saying is, with the capitalization comment, that the business went so well after that there was no need to capitalize it anymore. So you got a series of larger and larger contracts, I would imagine.
No. We got a series of just busy contracts, and for every job we did, we ultimately did the work. We collected the money, and because we had other jobs, we never took any money out of our business. We just kept putting the money back into the business, and just kept growing the business. Actually, in the first year in 1972, running around doing the work that we did about $100,000 worth of patios and driveways from the ads, the responses we got to the ad in the Evening Star.
You were able to get business, public business from the city during that time?
Yes. Well, let me say that in thinking back, I would say there were three main things that, if we look back as to why Fort Myer construction had success, there were three key pillars to that. First, the very early days, the number one would be the fact that there was a beltway. The fact that there was a beltway allowed us to be running around doing jobs in Woodbridge and in Gaithersburg in the same day. I mean, that's kind of phenomenal in itself, right? So that made it possible to grow a very small business doing patios and driveways. The second big pillar would be that Metro was just starting in Washington. In 1973, 1974, we actually created a company called Fort Myer Construction. We were originally Fort Myer Concrete, and then we formed Fort Myer Construction when the second section of the Metro was being built in Washington, Section A2. A company called American Structures was building the second section of the Metro from 14th to 15th Street along G Street.
And you did what? You did concrete?
And no. They were just digging the hole at the time. And I had my law practice just up the street, and I was walking down the street and saw them digging the hole. And I just walked in their trailer and asked them, well, who's going to put back your street? And don't you need a minority contractor to do that? And they said, you know, we don't have a contractor, and that is something new. We do have that obligation, and we'd like to talk to you about that. And I said, I will come back and talk to you about that with my partner. And we came back, and ultimately they hired us to put back the street. And we finished, and it really was the start of Fort Myer Construction, a union contractor. And so we ran two companies until about 1976, the non-union Fort Myer Concrete and the union Fort Myer Construction. And then by 1976, we merged the two companies together and went forward ever since as Fort Myer Construction. Let me just drop back and give you the third pillar that we built on.
Sorry.
No,
Sorry.
It leads to the answer.
Okay.
And that is the importance of Marion Barry to the story of Fort Myer Construction. Because in the 70s, when Marion Barry created the minority contracting programs, we were an 8A contractor as part of the Small Business Administration, and then we became part of the Marion Barry programs here in the District of Columbia. We were a local contractor, and we were a minority contractor qualifying under all of his programs. And Marion Barry truly not only had the vision and created the programs, but he truly enforced the programs and saw that small businesses needed to grow and become viable middle income, middle class operations in the city. And he fostered this new community of viable companies. And we were the beneficiary of that, along with Carl Jones and Angel Rubin and many other companies. And along with these companies that grew, all the other companies that came along with us, all the subcontractors and the suppliers. It was tremendous.
So that was the second part of my question.
Yes, absolutely.
Thousands of companies.
But not only that, what Marion Barry understood is that the importance of the minority contracting program was not that just that the companies would grow, but that they would absolutely bring along the employment of who they would hire, because these companies naturally would hire the people who filled around them, their local communities. And so we naturally hired our local community, our local people, which was the minority community. And so we hired many Spanish people, many African American people, as well as did Carl Jones and Angel Rubin and other minority companies. And so not only did the ownership of these companies get lifted by these programs, but the entire community got lifted by these programs, because these companies were going to hire the local people, not people from Pennsylvania and New Jersey, to work on DC jobs. And so his vision really changed everything in Washington, D.C. It still needs to be encouraged, and each administration has taken the torch to move that forward. And it's very important. But Marion Barry understood that, and we all have to always remember that.
That's right.
That was the most important
So
thing.
take me through then, in just generally the 90s and the 2000 to 2000 to the present. What has been the plan, the business plan? How have you expanded? What have you specialized in, and how have you gotten bigger?
Well, we started out as a company that did patios and driveways, so we were a flat work contractor, and then we were curb and gutter and sidewalk contractor. This was the natural work that we did. But over the years, we were gutsy, and we grew our capital, and we were able to be in a position to take some risks. And so the next big step in our progression was to buy asphalt plants, because you couldn't really be in the asphalt business, we believed, without owning your own asphalt production.
You own two of them.
Well, now we do. But we started out by first acquiring the asphalt plant of Roger Blunt, which was Tie Rock Construction. And then
Where is that plant? Where was that plant?
that's at 5th and V Northeast. And that still exists. That location still exists. And we
Fort
consider
Myer.
that our plant number one.
Right.
And then some years later, we acquired a second plant when we bought the operation of Angel Rubin, of Rubin and Gennaro,
right.
which was actually, today is home plate of the Nationals.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then years later, that obviously went away, but the opportunity came to buy a third plant location, and that plant is now at 1155 W Street Northeast, which is right off of Brentwood Road across from the Giant and the Home Depot.
So the progression became asphalt. That's paving roads,
Paving roads.
highways.
Yes, we became quite the expert on asphalt paving.
You became the colossus, I would imagine. There's nobody else. There's nobody else.
Well,
I mean, here's a
we-
question for you. I don't know if you can. How many miles or how many? How much pavement have you laid?
We actually in the asphalt industry, everything is done by tons. So every year we report how many hundreds of thousands of tons of asphalt we produce. And last year was our biggest year. We produced over almost 450,000 tons of asphalt.
450,000
Yeah,
tons
that's
of asphalt.
for asphalt plants that are on postage stamp size locations in the center of the nation's capital. You know, in sight of the Capitol building. You know, you can see the shrine of the Immaculate Conception down the street, or the dome of the Capitol building. It's kind of amazing, yeah.
And in theory, you've probably paved the entire city.
And we don't have railroad sidings. Every day the aggregate has to be trucked in from its sources. It's an amazing logistical feat every day to keep those plants going. But they are state-of-the-art plants and environmentally very friendly. Truly they are. And one of them has a big sign on it. It's known as the Big Green Machine. They are all state-of-the-art, environmental friendly plants. We have to say that.
So what are you most, in terms of projects, what are you most proud of? What are the projects that Fort Myer is most proud of?
Well, in the city, we've been involved in just about every monument that's been built, every major street that's been built. So there's really nowhere I can go when I take family around to take them on a tour of the city. When guests come in, it's kind of it's kind of embarrassing because I built this and I built that and we did this and we did that. But I guess from the early day, one of the most proud projects is, having been a veteran, we built the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. And so we were very proud of that. We built the memorial to the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence. We built Pennsylvania Avenue for PADC, the Pennsylvania Avenue Development Corporation. We built John Marshall Park. Most recently, we were a subcontractor involved in the Martin Luther King Memorial. We rebuilt Constitution Avenue, Independence Avenue for the National Park Service, a major customer of ours.
So let me see if I can finish on this. Tell me about your relationship with Joe, with Jose Rodriguez.
Yes.
What obviously you hit it off pretty quickly.
It's amazing, right? It's a marriage. We've been married for 45 years, and we just make it work.
So there's a friendship
because
there
we understand that together we're stronger than we would be separately, and so it's a real partnership.
Can
it's
you tell
truly
me
a
about
partnership.
the relationship with Carl Jones? How did that come about? Has Fort Myer worked with Carl Jones and his companies?
From the very beginning, I mean, Carl Jones and his company Jones and Artists was the very first, to me, was the very first minority contracting company that I was ever aware of in Washington, D.C. And they were up on the Brentwood Road area where we have our asphalt plant today. And then we got to get to know them, and Carl just has a wonderful, affable way about him, and he's been a mentor to us over the years.
Wow.
And he's a great man. He's just very smart and knowledgeable, and just a wonderful man to work with. And so over the years, we've worked with him and learned from him. So it's been a great relationship.
Wow.
With Angel Rubin, the relationship was very competitive. Always had to go after the same projects, and so we were very competitive, sharpening our pencil, going after the same projects. But there came a point where he indicated that he was ready to bow out of the paving industry back in 1988. And it was a time that we were just really feeling our oats, and when he indicated that he wanted to sell his paving business, we just jumped all over that opportunity. And it truly changed the character of our whole business. And we brought on a lot of good people from his company, and it was a tremendous boost to the character of our company. And we always remembered the date we settled because it was easy to remember. It was 8/8/88. So it was a date we could always remember.
So we've talked about how Fort Myer has nurtured and has helped small businesses in the city. What other kinds of sort of giving back to the community, what other kinds of charitable work, or how does Fort Myer see its role in this community?
Well, I think that if there's one critical path that is a common interest for Joe Rodriguez and Louis Shrensky, it is to see that the community continue to rise up and to better itself. So it's not as a whole community. So we're always interested in education, and we're interested in people's general welfare. So we give to a lot of charities that are supportive of education,
Such
as the tennis center in Southeast Washington is with the FBI's outreach program. It's an alumni association for the FBI, a group that has already had it, where they've outreach to the organization, outreach to the general community, and the people who have already gone through the program with the FBI formed an alumni association, and that alumni association now goes out to the greater Washington school community and works with the children in the schools. As a result of that, probably Joe Rodriguez spends 1 to 2 days a week going into the schools and talking to the children and mentoring them, and talking to them about the importance of staying in school and bettering themselves, and the importance of education, and how you can improve yourself by working hard.
How do you see the current locally?
Well, the outlook for
DC.
the progress in DC is really quite fantastic. The new projects that are coming up with talk about where the FBI is going to finally rest, where the FBI is finally going to be built, where is the opportunity for Amazon perhaps is going to be placed.
Did you have anything to do with the wharf?
Yeah, we're working there as a subcontractor.
No, very
But I
good.
mean, let me just back up and say, I think with all the cranes you see around Washington and the opportunity to be in the center of the nation's capital, there's always a lot of opportunities in this area. And it continues to be so. I mean, I think it's an exciting area, and I think the mayor continues to make it so. I think there's a lot going on, for example, right now in the Union Market area. There's a lot of activity. It's another whole new focus area for economic opportunities.
So what's the future here now?
Well, to keep improving the company, we're trying to always improve our professionalism.
So you
grow-
and
grow the
Jose come to work every day,
Yeah,
just like
yeah, he comes real early, and I stay real late.